So Kaikashi became upset and said, I don't desire such offering. Kindly be merciful. And Visvava replied, it can't be otherwise. But please know that your last son will be different than the others. He'll be virtuous and fully in accord with my family. So the first child born of Visvrava and Kaikashi was Dasagriva. Visvava, here's the description: 10 heads, 20 hands, huge fangs, and the color of coal. He had coppery lips, 20 arms, huge mouths, and hair that glowed like fire. When he was born, many inauspicious omens were seen. Foxes emitted flames from their mouths, blood fell from the sky, meteors dropped down, and clouds thundered fiercely. The earth rocked with its load of mountains, and the sea roared and sent up huge waves. So the father, Visvrava, named his child Dasagriva because he had 10 necks, like Haya Griva, neck. And he grew up fearful and cruel. And then the next 3 of their children, Kumbhakarna, Shuparnaka, and finally Vibhishan. And when Vibhishan was born, flowers fell from the sky, and the gods in heaven were heard to utter, very good, excellent. Sometime later, again, this is now the 4 children are born of Vishrava's second wife. And the half-brother of Ravana, or Dasagriva, came to visit his father in the Pushpaka Vimana. And the mother, Kaikashi, saw this. And she pulled her son to the side, her eldest of the 4 children, and said, look at you and look at that. So you should do something so that you have opulence like that. Exert yourself so that you are the equal of your brother in every way. And envious, spurred by the words of his mother, I swear to you that I shall rise equal to Vaishravana and even excel him in power. Do not grieve. So in its get-back mentality, he engaged in very severe austerities, in his case for 10,000 years. And big austerity. Eventually he got boons from Brahma, and we'll hear some of those details. For 10,000 years, he remained without food. He was capable of severe austerity. At the end of each of the 1,000 years, he had 10 heads. He severed one of his heads into the fire as an oblation. But each time he sliced a head off, another head appeared. So when he reached the 10th head, or 10,000 years, Lord Brahma appeared. And Ravana asked for immortality. Same thing Hiranyakashipu had asked for. And the answer was the same answer. I'm not immortal. I can't give you immortality. So then he did the same thing, something quite similar to what Hiranyakashipu did. Well, give me the benediction that I can't be killed this way, that way, the other way, and the other way. Very similar theme. But he left out animals and humans because he felt himself above that risk. So those boons were given. So after those boons were given by Brahma, he felt, I'm now immortal, invincible. So being invincible and being inspired by his mother, he went to the place where his brother, stepbrother, now Kuvera, but Ravana, was residing in Lanka. And he asked him to give him the kingdom or fight. So Vaishravana went to the father of the two and asked, Daddy, what should I do? He said, it's not good for you to fight him. So just give him Lanka. And so he was given Lanka. That's where Kuvera went to another place of residence besides what had been given by his father. And after that, Ravana went to his grandfather. So Kaikashi's father, his maternal grandfather, was Somali. He requested from Somali his entire army of Rakshasas, and the entire army of Rakshasas moved in to Lanka. So that's his big base of operation. Lanka. Built by Vishvakarma for the Rakshasas in any case, but now he had restored the power of the Rakshasas with that base. He then went to visit the abode of Lord Shiva. First, before he went there, he went to where Kuvera was and engaged in battle with Kuvera because he wanted to defeat Kuvera. He wanted the Pushpaka Vimana. So he defeated Kuvera and he usurped the Pushpaka Vimana. So now he's consolidating power. And using the Pushpaka Vimana, he went to the abode of Lord Shiva. When he went to the abode of Lord Shiva, as he was passing over with his Vimana, it wouldn't go further. It was a kind of craft that didn't have an engine. It was a mind-driven and steered craft. But when he desired to go see Lord Shiva, it wouldn't move. So the Pushpaka Vimana descended, and he saw the protector, Nandi. So he requested Nandi, please give me entrance. And Nandi said, you're not qualified, you can't come. And Ravana's not going to be told he can't come, so he started insulting Nandi, telling him what he looked like, and, who are you to stop me, and you don't know who I am. And Nandi was insulted by his words. So Nandi uttered a curse, and this is going to be repeated at the end. The curse was, you're so insulting, you'll be defeated by monkeys. And Ravana's, not going to be undone. He used his 20 arms. I'm going to lift the whole of Mount Kailash. And he started put his 20 arms underneath the whole mountain and started to lift. That's how powerful he was. And it started to move. And as it started to move, the whole mountain trembled. And Parvati became fearful and turned to her husband. And Lord Shiva said, don't worry. It's just a little pipsqueak who was very proud. So he just took his toe and pressed his toe on Mount Kailash, and the whole mountain descended and crushed his 20 arms. And it stayed in that position for 1,000 years. The ministers of Lord Shiva came to inform Ravana, he's still not known by the name Ravana. It's still Dasagriva. Shiva gave him the name. So they said, you've insulted the wrong person. You're in big trouble. But we know that from your father, you've learned scripture, and one of the scriptures teaches music. You know how to play music. Just use the nerves and the veins of your arms, and you can use them as musical instruments, and then you can sing songs in glorification of Lord Shiva. You can do that. And if you please Lord Shiva, then you'll get relief. And otherwise, there's no relief for you. So he did that. He was calling out in pain very, very loudly, but then started singing songs in glorification of Lord Shiva using his own body as a musical instrument for a long period of time. And finally, Lord Shiva became pleased. He released his toe. He could remove his arms from underneath the mountain. And Lord Shiva invited him to come see him, and he gave him some benedictions. You pleased me by your determination and your devotion to me. So he gave him a particular sword, a divine sword. And I'm not familiar with this, but Chandra Hasa. Chandra, of course, means moon, and Hasa or Hasya means smile or laughter. So it's a sword in the shape of a smile. It has apparently a curved shape. And when he gave him this, it's a celestial weapon. But if you use it for ill purposes, it will come back to my hand and your life will end shortly. So it has to be used in proper way. And he then also gave him the name Ravana. So Ravana has two meanings. That when he was wailing in pain, it was disturbing the whole universe. It was so loud. And so by one's loud outcry, one disturbs others. That's one meaning of Ravana. Another is you make people cry. You're so cruel. And so your name will be Ravana. And from that point forward in time, Ravana is now considered and lived his life as a devotee of Lord Shiva. We remember Ravana had two brothers and a sister. And Kumbhakarna and Vibhishana, they also engaged in austerities to Lord Brahma. And when Brahma appeared before them, Vibhishana was asked, what benediction would you like? Being the virtuous one, he requested to always be fixed in righteousness, even when he was in the greatest difficulty. So that boon was granted. And Kumbhakarna was then also asked for a boon. But the demigods who were with Brahma at the time, they said, this is a mistake. Don't give a boon to this fellow. We know that he's already devoured 7 apsaras, 10 attendants of Indra, and numerous rishis and human beings. If you make him powerful, who knows what he'll do? So, on the pretext of granting a boon, you should instead place him under the spell of some delusion. Because the demigods have some powers like that. They have some power of creating some illusory something or other. So Brahma requested the goddess of learning Saraswati to delude the speech of Kumbhakarna. So Kumbhakarna said, I want to sleep. I want to sleep for many years. And Ravana interrupted and said, no, not many years. So, all right, 6 months he can sleep. Then one day he'll awake, and then 6 months he can sleep. So that benediction was put in place. And there's another very interesting detail about Ravana's marriage. Another one of the sons of Kashyapa and Aditi in the Daitya clan was Maya Dhanava, a very celebrated person. And he shows up all over the place in Maya Dhanava. But that's who he was the son of. And Maya Dhanava had a daughter. And the daughter was the daughter of Hema, who was an upstart. There's a long involved story of how Maya Dhanava and Hema got together and where they resided and so forth and so on. And there was a daughter. And since Maya Dhanava was searching for a suitable husband, when he came across in the forest one time when Ravana was hunting, he met Ravana. When he found out the family from which Ravana comes, from Visvava, he was very happy, and then marriage was arranged. Mandodari was Maya Dhanava's daughter, but they had a son after some time, and that son became known as Indrajit because he conquered Indra. That's how he got the second name Indrajit, but his original name before it was Indrajit was Megha Nada, and that is as soon as he was born, there was a tremendous roar like that of a thundercloud, and so Ravana gave him the name, the cloud thunderer, Megha Nada. So in the course of telling the story of Ravana's life, after he had the Pushpaka Vimana and the benedictions from Lord Shiva and the benedictions from Brahma, he got really puffed up. He started traveling all over the place to conquer people. He wanted to conquer the world, conquer the universe. So there was a number of curses that ended up his undoing. One of them was the curse that Nandi gave. Here's a slightly adjusted description, because there are different Ramayanas and different ways of narrating. After defeating his elder brother Kuvera in battle, Dasagriva reached Saravana mountains, the place of birth of Skanda and Kartikeya. But his Pushpaka Vimana, which flies per the will of its owner, could not fly any more. And he saw Nandishwara, and he laughed at Nandishwara that he wasn't allowed to enter. So he cursed him, that monkeys will bring about the destruction of your race. Then he tried, it's the whole thing. He tried to lift the mountain, etc. So the second curse is Vedavati. And again, there's different versions. Vedavati has her role in Tirupati, as you probably know. But the Ramayana description is he's flying over the Himalayas in his Pushpaka Vimana, and he happened to notice, way down below, a young woman performing austerities. Impelled by lust, he tried to kidnap her and have her for himself, but the young maiden, named Vedavati, pronounced accursed, that she will be born again and become the cause of destruction of, and she entered fire. So now that, you know that story. He used the real direct approach. Who are you, lovely lady? And what are you doing here in the forest? And you should have a qualified protector, and I'm a qualified protector. Woo, woo, woo. Let's get together. She told her story, the qualification of her exalted father, and she was born as the goddess of fortune from her qualified father. The qualified father wanted a qualified Lord Vishnu personality to become her husband, and suitors were rejected, so one of them killed her father. So she was left without a husband and without a father. So she was engaged in austerities, and I'll only marry Lord Vishnu. So he didn't stop at that. He, said some other things, and she said, don't behave like this. And he grabbed her hair, and he was going to molest her. She did a judo chop. She just cut off her hair and then uttered this curse. I'm going to enter into, you've touched my hair, I'm going to give up this body. I've been touched by a wicked person such as you. And you will be killed in your next life. I will be born again and be the cause of your death. That was the second curse. So killed by a monkey race, his whole clan would be destroyed by a monkey race. Vedavati would come again and destroy him. There's a third curse, and there was in Ayodhya. This is Ayodhya. The history of Ayodhya is Vaivasvata Manu had a son named Ikshvaku. So Vaivasvata Manu arranged for a celestial kingdom to be built on earth. Manu is the father of mankind, and he gave different areas of jurisdiction to different sons, and the area that he gave to Ikshvaku was Lanka, to rule the planet. That the kingdom of Lanka was built, and he gave Ikshvaku that residence. Through some generations before Lord Ramachandra, there was a Ikshvaku dynasty king named Anaranya. So when Ravana was traveling around here and there conquering everybody into submission, he came to Ayodhya. And there was a battle between Anaranya and Ravana. Ravana was insulting explicitly Ikshvaku and the Ikshvaku dynasty, and nobody is powerful like me. So while Ravana was in the midst of attempting to kill Anaranya uttered a curse that within this dynasty there will be a great king who will kill you. Those are three curses. And there's a fourth curse. There's many ladies who were abducted by him, and they also cursed him that he would die, but because of his sinful deeds. And then there was another one. This is a very important one. His half-brother Kuvera had two sons, Nalakuvara and Manigriva. We know about that from Krishna's pastimes. But during Ravana's time, when he was conquering Kuvera, there were his two sons, Nalakuvara and Manigriva. And he saw the wife of Nalakuvara, and he couldn't control himself, lusty fellow. And he tried speaking nicely to seduce his Nalakuvara's wife. She was very chaste. Her name is Ramba. And Ramba resisted. So he grabbed her and raped her. He molested her. And she went back to her husband, bloodied and crying and wailing, and then he uttered a curse to Ravana that if he ever touched a woman against her will, he would immediately die. Not immediately, he would die, soon die, because of that. So Ravana wasn't afraid of anybody or anything, but he heard that there were some times where this took place, so it's for that reason he didn't violate Sita, the curse of Rumba. So those are 5 curses. And there are 2 other situations where Ravana was defeated. And one of those defeats is described directly in Canto 9, Chapter 15. There's at least reference to it in this Kartaviryarjuna. Kartaviryarjuna was a very powerful king who was licentious. So one time he, Kartaviryarjuna, was enjoying with ladies in a lake. Ravana came by, and Ravana started insulting Kartaviryarjuna and trying to woo the ladies. And Kartaviryarjuna became enraged, and he captured and arrested Ravana. But then Palastya, who is the grandfather of Ravana, came and intervened. He had taken him back to his kingdom and put him in jail. Palastya intervened and suggested that Kartaviryarjuna release him. So he did, at the request of Palastya Muni. And they made a truce between them, Ravana and Kartaviryarjuna. So although he was powerful, he knew there were more powerful persons, even in the world. And another was Vali. That this is described in Ramayana in detail. In his conquering program, he went one time, Ravana went to Kishkinda. And he wanted to fight, whoever was in charge. So the persons that received Ravana when he arrived were Sugriva, Shushena, Angada, and the minister Tara. So they received Ravana and said, Vali is not here right now. He's gone to do his morning ablutions in the 4 directions. So you can wait till he comes back, but if you're really in a hurry to lose your life, you can go to the southern sea and you can find him there. So he went in his Pushpaka Vimana and he found Vali. And Vali was engaged in meditation. So his plan was to sneak up on him and attack him. But Vali, out of the corner of his eye, saw Ravana coming. And when Ravana was approaching, without even paying any attention, he just stood up and put Ravana under his armpit and continued with his meditation and rose into the air and went to the next place. And he did that in each of the places and then came back to Kishkinda. And he said, so what was it that you wanted, Ravana? I don't know who you are. Tell me who you are. And he said who he was. And he recognized Vali as very, very powerful. He honored his power. He honored his speed. He honored everything about him. And made an appeal for friendship. And so they made this little pact, similar to what Sugriva and Ram did. They had a fire and they made vows of friendship. And Ravana continued to reside at Kishkinda for 1 month. honored by an honored guest, honored by Bali. So he knew that there were people more powerful. When he was in difficulty, he went to visit Bali Maharaj to seek some assistance from him. This is another celebrated. There's two different versions. One is Vamana kicked him and he went flying 100,000 yojanas. You can't enter. Another version is he was given entrance. Vamana said, "You're not qualified to enter, but anyway, you can come." And Bali heard him out. He wanted some assistance from Bali to defeat Ramchandra. So Bali said, "You're a great personality. I'd like to offer you a gift. See over here, here's a mountain of gold. You can take it." So he tried to lift the mountain of gold. And he couldn't lift it. He tried and he tried. And by closer examination, it wasn't a mountain of gold. It was a golden ornament. And Bali said, "Let me tell you the story behind this golden earring. In your previous life, you were Hiranyakashipu. And in the fight between Hiranyakashipu and Lord Nrsingadev, one of his earrings fell off, and it came down to here to Sutala. That's what that is. That's an earring of the person who you were in your previous life. You can't lift that earring. You were killed by that same Lord who you want me to help you kill. You're foolish. I'm not going to participate with you in your foolishness." So he went away. Two different versions of his visit to Bali Maharaj. There's a really long story in Ramayana of his going to the abode of Yamaraj. And Yamaraj was going to finish him. It's a long story of how that came about. But Yamaraj was told, there's a benediction that Brahma gave that you can't be killed by a demigod. So you can do it, but it would violate a benediction of Brahma. So don't do it. So he just let him go. But he's a super terrorist. He knew no boundaries to satisfy his desires, whatever they may be. That's his, the classic divine and demoniac nature, personality. His molesting of Rumba is one. It's his niece, his brother's son's wife. No, and she said, "You're my uncle. Please don't do this." He knew no boundaries. One of the things that happened, that's narrated in Ramayana, is he killed his sister's husband. Shuparnaka was married. He arranged the marriage for Shuparnaka. But in the course of his conquest, one of the soldiers in the opposing side, he got so furious in fighting, he killed her husband. And then she went wailing when he came back and said, "You killed my husband." "I'm sorry. I got a little carried away. But we'll protect you, so you just stay with us." He's like an uncontrolled personality. And most importantly, his kidnapping of Sita. Although he was advised, here's the list of persons that advised. Of course, Vibhishan advised. Kumbhakarna advised. When he woke Kumbhakarna up, before it was time for him to wake up, he gave the same advice. Just give back Sita. You're violating such a basic principle. Ultimately, you're my brother and you have my loyalty, but give her back. You're not prepared to give her back, I'll fight on your side. His maternal grandfather, so his mother's father, his mother's father. Anyway, maternal grandfather was named Malyavan. I always get all these family things mixed up. Malyavan was a resident in Lanka. Malyavan also advised Ravana when it came to the discussions of what to do after Hanuman had come and did what Hanuman did. Malyavan advised, and Ravana wouldn't listen. Maricha advised. A really nice section I like. When the second time that Ravana came, appealing for Maricha to help him, and then it was like, I'll kill you if you don't. But he explained why I'm living in a cave. I'm living in fear of Ram. And he described the powers of Ram. You're inviting your own death. You have no idea. It was the plan to kidnap Sita. So he wanted his participation. But he couldn't hear. The first time around, it was a pause. But second time around, he couldn't. He was hell-bent on his own destruction. So people that are of demoniac nature, they're like that. Kuvera, his half-brother or step-brother, similarly advised him. There were plenty of people that were attempting to steer him in the right direction, but not possible. And the persons he would listen to were persons who would say yes to everything. The rubber stamp people that were his ministers and generals and so forth. He was capable of great austerities, and through those great austerities getting powers, but he was a duskriti. Kriti, used properly, is sukriti, and kriti, used improperly, is duskriti. So he's a mega duskriti, just as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Persons who never surrendered to him. They're in this duskriti position. So he was a superlative example of duskriti. Of course, there's more to what he did later, but that's a background on the profile of Ravana. Very vicious person. So let's see if so how it's going to work when we have classes with the Chinese devotees. We've been here for a little over an hour. This would be 2 hours because they have to translate everything into Chinese. Let's see how it goes. So any discussion, any thoughts, add some things about Ravana's character and personality, and so forth?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I think this is first time I'm hearing so much big, detailed profile about Ravana now. So
it's
thank you
usually
very much.
Little pieces here, little pieces there.
Yes. So recently I have started reading Ramayana to my daughter, and one thing I'm struggling is explaining about between faith and reasoning, like lifting mountains and all these things. How do I, when that things comes, how do I explain to the children? Like,
how old?
She's 9.
9.
Yeah.
Age. It's important to give an answer to like this. What's the capacity of age level for someone to understand? One way is through, a child when there was there's different ways of saying this. Through technology and science, people are able to do things that they were just never even think of doing before. Maybe you study in school about Wilbur and Orville Wright, and they're learning to fly. Do you study about that in school? I mean, it's just something that they can relate to. And now it's not just people can fly, but people are, not just 747s, they're going to other planets. Now that was not thought of before. It was like, who could think of that? Or you just sit in your room and you send a message to somebody else. And no, the technology has gone way beyond fax machines, telex, and then fax machines. Now you just do like this, and you can instantly speak to somebody on some other side of the planet. You can hear their voice, and they can hear yours. So that's, through subtle laws of nature, things that were thought of as impossible before. I remember the first time somebody told me about a fax machine, I thought they were joking. And then it was with a cable, and now it's without cable. It's just send a signal in space, and over on the other side comes a document, or a digital image of that document. And you can just press a button and send somebody a document. So as those things were unthinkable before, it's just manipulation of material laws. So if a scientist can do that, why there can't be greater powers than the scientists today even can come up with, or you can think about? And there are such powers. So let's talk about, to your daughter, let's talk about one whose powers are without limit. And this is Jiva Goswami saying in Bhagavad Sandarbha, without accepting that the source of everything has unlimited and inconceivable powers, there's no question of understanding the source of everything. Or say reverse. When one accepts the source of everything is unlimited and inconceivable powers, then you can begin to understand about Bhagavan. So what's that which has unlimited and inconceivable powers? Unlimited and inconceivable powers. And can those powers be invested in somebody? If they have, they can invest something over here, invest something over there, withdraw it. What about people that can't walk? They were walking, and then the power of walking is withdrawn. They can't walk anymore. So where does that power of walking come from? You walk across the room all the time, and do, play and do stuff. So what happens if that power is withdrawn? Or that power can be extended further. You can run faster than anybody else, and then you can't. So powers there's the source of everything has all unlimited and inconceivable power, just by definition. Whatever that is, that's the source of everything. And that power can be invested in others, and someone can do these things. Krishna can lift Govardhan Hill without even lifting Govardhan Hill. He can just wish it. He can just think it. And his potencies are such that his potencies do his will. But then he performs pastimes, he lifts a hill. So they go back to something that they're aware of, and it's like unthinkable. But then here it is. So people go, wow, Mr. Scientist, you're cool. We're at your feet, and what's next? But where does a scientist get his ability to do? It's just manipulating laws and energies. And where's the source of those energies and those laws and maintaining them? And it's That's what we're talking about. These are pastimes of that which is the source of everything, that has all powers, unlimited and inconceivable. That's a definition.
Thank you very much. Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
So Ravana was, he knew Vedas.
Yes, he did.
He did.
From his father.
So
he didn't follow it.
Yeah. He did not follow. I think that answered my question. Yeah, I wanted to see like how knowledge cannot even produce the morality in him, Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That I had two questions. Although Ravana was born not as an asura,
Yes, correct.
but when he went to Lanka, he asked for help and invited back all the asuras
Yes.
rather than all the good people.
Yes.
And the second thing is, although he performed austerities for 10 and thousands of years, why his dominic personality didn't change? So we are like in passion mode all the time by just performing little chanting or this. How it's going to?
Well,
happen?
if you have putting something powerful in the hands of a person that has bad character is very dangerous. Technology in the hands of a person that has bad character is very dangerous. Technology isn't good or bad. It's the user of that technology. It's the mentality, so the divine and demoniac nature. He became corrupted by bad association. And the bad association was his mother. And his mother was the daughter of Sumali and Tataka. Bad association. They passed that bad association on to their daughter, and who passed that bad association on to their son, and he became corrupted. It wasn't just genetic, it's association. So the Duskriti, he was capable of austerities like anything, but how to use it, Duskriti. So the austerities and this and that and the other thing it's like technology, isn't good or bad. A knife isn't good or bad. It's how you use it.
But he had a good brother.
Yes.
His
Yes.
brother.
He had a Sukriti.
Influenced
He had
by
a Sukriti nature. So, one's nature can change. A good person can become corrupted by bad association. A bad person can become elevated by good association. But Ravana was incorrigible. He had many opportunities, but he was incorrigible. So that's why he had to be eliminated. And he was eliminated. And he was freed when he was eliminated. He was freed from all the reactions of those misdeeds. But the reactions of misdeeds doesn't mean the tendency to do more misdeeds isn't there. When you mow your lawn and you cut the dandelions along with the grass, the weeds of the dandelion, the root is still there.
Thank you, bro.
Hare Krishna. Even he was very bad, but when he abducted Sita Mata, he kept in an Ashok one and he didn't marry her forcefully. Why?
Well, he didn't because of the curse of Ramba. Ramba's husband, Nalakuvera. If you violate a woman against her wish, you'll die. So he didn't know for sure, maybe, maybe not. Sometimes I've heard it happens, so I'm not going to violate. And if she doesn't submit, I'll have her for breakfast. Right? That's Duskriti. Anything else?
One more question.
Yeah, sure.
The other thing was, we have recently started with Prabhuji, Gita, so we now at least know, because we have been watching and studying about Mahabharata and Ramayana from childhood.
Yes.
As a story and the movie, it was fantastic. But since now, recently we have started understanding, as we read Gita, the purpose of appearance of Krishna, why he appeared and what was his goal
Good.
and purpose.
Good.
So I'm now curious to know what were the purposes of Rama when he appeared? What were his goals?
His goals?
What was the purpose of his appear?
There's multiple. You know, there's the same three that Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Pritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam dharma samstha. So he appeared because the Devas had appealed to Lord Vishnu, please protect us from this burden of the Rakshasas that are harassing. So he appeared for that. That was the vinashaya chaduskritam. But he also, it's explained, each of the avatars, there's something very special and unique. And the special and unique about Rama is the ideal king. Ram Raja. So, one wife upholding Satya, the truth, at all expense of his own convenience, to uphold the word of his father. One version of Ramayana says, when Kaikeyi pronounced the two things, she was astonished. His face features didn't change. He just said, is that all, mother? I'm leaving today. No, so he's showing. Now there's many other things. The stirring of emotion amongst his devotees, because that's the more, you can say, more subtle or the higher purpose, is stirring the emotions of all the residents of Ayodhya, feeling sorrow. Now, sorrow sounds like a bad thing, but this is a little detail. This is a purpose of Lord Ram's appearance, is to stimulate love from his eternal associates. And there's 5 primary rasas, and there's 7 secondary rasas. And Ram is the presiding deity of one of those 7. And it's sorrow. So each of the persons who came to know that Ram is not going to become the king, he's not going to be our protector, and he's going to go to the forest for 14 years, they felt different feelings. So he's creating a pastime where they can feel those feelings. That those secondary rasas, by nature, is like a wave that covers the primary rasa and then subsides. But it stimulates and enhances and strengthens the primary rasa. Oh no! And it's very sad. I know some people that they can't read Ramayana anymore because it's too sad and it's sad and it's sad and they just can't. So hearing that from them, that's what inspired me to find out what's all this about, because it is very prevalent. You know, the different English translations read differently, but one of them that I like is it's sorrow, and it's just how many times is sorrow in that pastimes of Ram, especially his leaving of. So it's stimulating the love of his eternal associates, because in Ayodhya, in the spiritual world, he doesn't leave Ayodhya. He doesn't go kill Rakshasas. There's no Rakshasas. But so it's a worldly pastime that stimulates. His appearance is to stimulate love of his eternal associates in different ways, because it's not all sorrow, it's many other nice things. When he returns, celebration. and then his rule, and the citizens are happy, and so it's stimulating love of his associates. He's eternal associate. So that's his earthly or Bhoma Lila. So he's doing those other three things, but most importantly, he's stimulating the love of his eternal associates. There's a little detail that's described in the spiritual realm, in Ayodhya, in the Haridham, in Vaikuntha realm. There is Dasarath and Kaushalya. And they have the sense that Krishna is our son, that Rama is our son. But there's no birth pastime. But they have that sense. This is what our acharyas describe. And so when the Lord appears, it's to reconfirm, yes, because these are his eternal associates, and he takes birth. And he has, his brothers, and so etc. So it's another enjoyment. The birth and the marriage. It's a wonderful event, and everyone's joyous. It's not only he, but his brothers are also married, and it's a very joyous event. So it's to give joy to his devotees, stimulating their love in various ways. That's the higher purpose. But the other three things are also there. The ideal king. And he rules by virtue, not by, military strength. He has military strength, but that's not why people follow. Okay?
And one more thing, on the same thing, you said that he represents sorrows, right?
Are we on?
No, you said that.
The microphone doesn't seem to be on. Okay, go ahead.
No, you just said that Rama represent sorrows, right? Sorrow. Distract. You just said that.
Sorrow, yes.
But on the mantra that we do, we've been taught that Rama is a symbol of happiness.
Yes.
Pleasure.
It's a mystery, isn't it?
Right.
And I'll go to. Have you started reading Nectar of Devotion?
No, but we have read Nectar of Instruction.
Nectar of Instruction. When you get to Nectar of Devotion, what I just said is capsulized. But it's what's capsulized in Nectar of Devotion is what appears to be unhappy is ecstasy. The feelings of love and separation looks sad. It's in ecstasy. Hanuman, there's some prayers of Hanuman in Canto 5, Chapter 19. One day you'll have a Bhagavatam set in your home and you can go look at it. You can probably just read it online. But he says, in his prayers, 10 prayers, he says, there's no way that Sita can be separated from Ram. They're eternal associates. It's a Leela. And so it appears to be really sad, and he goes through all kinds of contortions. It's really sad. Oh, sorrow.
Right.
Not only the residents of Ayodhya, but him. But it's not possible. Hanuman, slams his hand on the desk and says, it's not possible. How can they be separated? It's a Leela. I mean, there's more to it, but so it's joy, and so that separation looks from the worldly lens. That's sad, and it's translated, but it's a type of bhava. It's an ecstasy. It's an ecstasy that looks here comes the wave. Oh no, and then it subsides. Oh. From like with Krishna's pastimes, the parents, parental affection, they're concerned with Krishna's safety. So when there's demons, they want no demons. They leave Gokula to go to Vrindavan because there are too many childhood demons. So they have a conference and they get together and decide let's move. Too many demons, too much tribulation for our children, especially Krishna. But then they go to Vrindavan and there's more. So anyway, the cowherd boys, they don't have any problem. This Agasura demon. They see, what's that? Maybe it's just like a big statue that Krishna put there for playing, because they're on this, playing mood. They're just playing. That's their relationship with Krishna. They're sakhas, and the predominance is just playfulness. So then some say, well, wait a minute. Maybe it's not just like some sculpture or something. Maybe it's an actual something dangerous. Some start running. So some boys say, no. Even if it is, we want to see Krishna's power. And besides, we're curious what's in there. Let's go. So they all go inside. They don't have that feeling of, they want to see Krishna exhibit his wonderful, and when he exhibits his wonderful, they go, oh wow, that was really good. Let's go have lunch. There's no fear or for Krishna's safety. They don't have that. They're cowherd boys. And the gopis, so there's different emotions over one thing, different perceptions are very different because of their relationship with Krishna. But one thing is true for all. Krishna is at the center. So same with Ram. He's joy, but it looks like sorrow. And then it subsides, and then there's reunion again.
That's why we celebrate Diwali.
Yeah. And then so to have Diwali, you have to have Ram gone.
Right.
And he comes back. Yay! Let's celebrate. This is, we were discussing it this morning. Jiva Goswami says, in order to have a relationship, there has to be two things, meeting and separation. Because if supposing there's no separation, I gave this example to the group of Chinese devotees in this morning's class, because I know these two persons. Jambavati, you contact this other devotee, and you say, I'd like to come and visit you, and I'd like to stay for 2 months, and I'd like you to be with me for 24 hours a day for 2 months. And your other duties you're just going to have to put to the side, because I want you to be with me 24 hours for 3 months. That's not a relationship. There has to be some of both for a relationship. So then you take it to where it's in intense feelings of love, and just a moment's separation feels like 10 years or more. What to speak of 14 years. So there's feelings, but then that's part of the relationship. And when he returns, or Rama's again united with Sita, it wasn't 14 years, it was just 1 year. And then they're reunited, and it's a big celebration. So it's part of relationship. And it's joyful, including the separation part. It's also joyful. It looks something else from the material lens. It's just part of a loving relationship. It's joyful. When we have relationships with people, we have to expect that. It's going to be not just, good times and bad times. It's going to be variegated exchanges, and there's one thing that doesn't change, the commitment to one another. But there's going to be variegatedness in that relationship, and it makes for joyfulness in the relationship, because here comes a challenge, and how are we going to face it? And Radharani's position in relation to Krishna, her love is unwavering, but sometimes she talks back. Get away from me. You're dilly-dallying with Chandravali. You're unfaithful. You go somewhere else. But, she has nothing but love in her heart. Anyway, she becomes proud and Krishna leaves. And she goes mad. And then she finds Krishna. Anyway, it's just part of relationship. It's loving relationship. Has all those varieties within it. And Krishna likes. He's enjoying as his devotees are enjoying. Now he's also feeling separation from when he hears that his father has died. He weeps. He's feeling feelings. He's the Lord. There's lots of mysteries in transcendence. It looks like something material, but it's not. The something material looks like something that's not material. It's love.
One more thing. Can I ask?
Yeah, sure.
Other than Ramayana subject in general, I have a question that since childhood.
Are we on? Since childhood. Go ahead,
Hello?
speak. Go ahead.
Yeah.
You're good.
Since childhood, when somebody is more into religious, we used to say that he is very religious. Now that we are studying Gita and coming into contact with devotee and everyone, it's getting a spiritual journey. So now what is the difference between being spiritualist and being religious?
It's a very important question.
Because am I consider myself a religious or spiritual? I don't know.
That's something else. That's for you to decide. But rather than saying what the material perception of spiritual is, I'll make a comment. Today, in today's world, a person that's inclined towards the mode of goodness, they're considered spiritual. Person inclined towards mode of goodness, they're spiritual. But that's not what spiritual means. I mean, that's contemporary, but it's not really what it means. And religious does mean following the laws given by God. Religion, dharma, is a dictionary definition, is the laws given by God, and a religious person is one who follows the laws given by God. That's a religious person. Religion is laws given by God, how to live your life. And different religions have their laws, and the religious person follows those laws. That's what a religious person is. And spiritual is, what's the purpose behind those laws? Because one can follow laws of religion or the state or whatever, and really not know what the purpose is, besides being good. Follow the law. Obey the law. Don't break the law. And spiritual is being in contact with the purpose behind. When you read Nectar of Instruction, you reading it now? You've all read it already. Tat tat karma pravartanat. Or being too much the follower of rules without knowing the purpose behind, or neglecting the rules. Either way, it's detrimental to bhakti. Bhakti is the spiritual position, so the spiritual position is to know the purpose. Now what's the purpose? When you get to Nectar of Devotion, you'll find out. It says specifically, the purpose is to always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. There's a Sanskrit phrase that says that. Always remember that the vidhi and the principle driving or overriding the purpose behind all vidhis of religion is to bring your attention, become attached to Krishna. So when you're attached to the source of everything, in love, that's spiritual. Supposing somebody does religious stuff, they don't know that's the purpose. They're not spiritual. Spiritual is to know the purpose and to be at least striving to connect with that higher purpose, to know who you are, your eternal relationship with the source of everything, and be situated there in consciousness while you're living your life in this world, following rules, being, a good person, following theistic conduct, being religious, with a purpose.
So you don't have to, once you know the purpose,
It's
principles, you don't have to follow.
You follow because it's the right thing to do, not because I want to be religious because I want to get to heaven. Generally people follow principles of religion for two reasons. They want piety because the fruits of piety is I'll prosper in this life. And the other is I'll go to the good place after this life by being pious. By being virtuous, I'll go to the place where virtuous persons reside, heaven. Prosperity in this life, go to heaven in the next life. The two. It's right in Bhagavad Gita, and it's true. I've asked audiences in different parts of the world. It's true. That's how people think. And Krishna says, generally people don't think more than that. If they think that. That's the purpose. But that's religious, and then beyond religious is the message of Bhagavad Gita. What's the purpose of, in the advice of Bhagavad Gita is don't try to go to heaven. There, repeated birth and death take place. Even go to Brahmaloka, repeated birth and death take place. The goal is to go beyond birth and death. So what's that? Transcendence. What's that? Be attached to the transcendent. What's that? That's yoga. Connect with the transcendent. That's the purpose. The vidhis are to help serve that. Now, your question was, supposing you make that connection, do you not need to follow the vidhis anymore? And you do. You do. Arjun, Krishna says to Arjun, you'll do because you'll be then setting example for others. Yad yaracharati shreshtas. Those who are shreshta, the best among mankind, other persons follow them. So you'll follow because you want to set a good example. You don't follow because you have to, because you're already there. But you'll do it because you know that you're setting an example. And you care about other people. You want other people to reach that position, so you set a good example. There are codes of conduct which you'll live by. You brush your teeth. You do things that are cleanliness and truthfulness and simplicity, and those things are helping all of that. Control of the mind and senses. I still do those things. It's the codes, but I don't do them for a material purpose. I do them because it's just the right way to live, and I'm setting an example for others. Now, on the platform, there's a detail from Nectar of Devotion. On that spontaneous platform, supposing there's this surge of ecstatic devotion, and there's some vidhi that you're supposed to be doing down here. There's no violation or transgression of laws of dharma if you're in fact in this ecstatic mood. You may not brush your teeth.
There's no fast track.
Yeah. Huh?
There's no fast track.
Yeah. But if you're there and if there's some vidhi that you've neglected, you're not put in the penalty box. You're not punished by violation of dharma. But it's only when that ecstatic exhibition of love that one may do such things. But otherwise one does those things because it's the right way to live. And teach and shedding example for others. We have some online question? 3. You have anything? No? Maybe. Lady, we'll come back and ask you again. Okay.
This is from Kirti Prabhu. Is Maya Dhanava, the father of Mandodari, same as the demon who built the mystic palace for Arjuna?
Yes, he did lots of things. He was a really busy guy. Yeah, same one.
And this question is from Deva, Kanagaraj Prabhu's 10-year-old son. It's not related to Ramayana. He's asking, why did Brahma create 9 planets?
Why did Brahma create 9 planets? I don't know that Brahma created 9 planets. You'll have to ask me separately because I don't know what you're referring to. He created 14 planetary systems, but there's a lot more than 9 planets. So that's...
And this question is from Amrita Keli Mataji. While hearing about this detailed description of Ravana, I am wondering what should be my mood while hearing and sharing these descriptions. I remember hearing some time back that more people tend to commit crimes these days because there is publicity of crimes and awareness of how to do a crime.
Yeah.
So I'm also remembering people constructing temples and worshipping these personalities like Duryodhana and Ravana. Is it possible for us to help such ignorant people? What should be our mood or role in sharing or reading these narratives to new people?
Well, the main business of Ramayana is the virtue and the joy of Ram, the ideal king. So ideal kings may have to face their counterpart, the ideal demon, or the exemplary. But good will always win over evil, or light will always win over darkness, or Ram will always conquer Ravana. And as powerful and as ill-purposed as Ravana was, as unscrupulous as he was defeated. So what's the limit of Ravana's power and unscrupulousness? Well, we cited some places, Kartavirya and Yamaraj and Vali and others who defeated him. He wasn't invincible. What to speak of Lord Ramachandra? He was so. It depends on who you're sharing this with, their age and their level of understanding. That this particular audience, the group persons assembled here and persons online, it's a profile. But we go back to Bhagavad Gita, divine and demoniac nature. They exist since the beginning of creation. There is a demoniac nature. There is a divine nature. Even at the very, very beginning, when Brahma first was manifesting the Vedas, there was Madhu and Kaitava wanting to steal the Vedas. And Brahma had to help Vishnu, and so he came and he chopped him. So it's since the beginning of time, of creation. So there are such forces, and what do you do knowing that there are such forces? Where do you take shelter? So, it depends on the person who you're speaking to, how you explain these things. Yesterday was Hanuman, and today is Ravana. And guess who wins? Next.
There is just some comment about Deva asking about the 9 planets. He is asking about the planets that we refer to, Mercury, Venus, and all those. Yeah.
That's just a speck. And that's what modern science says, and the Vedic picture has a somewhat different perspective on cosmology. But, for a young person to understand Vedic cosmology, it's not easy. But if you can find somebody that can explain to a 9-year-old about Vedic cosmology, that would be helpful, because it's quite a different picture than you learn or what we are taught in modern science. It's a different picture. Not to say, this is right and that's wrong or something like that. It's quite a different picture. A God-centered picture. Okay. That's it? Okay, last chance. Anything at all? Curiosity.
No, actually, I don't have a question. I think he asked the same question, the religious and the spiritual. So that was
helpful?
kind of I had,
Okay.
that was very helpful.
There's a motive there's happiness that's religious, and there's happiness that's spiritual. Happiness that's religious is mode of goodness. And we know from Bhagavad Gita about mode of goodness, happiness. We become conditioned by it, according to Bhagavad Gita. There's a certain happiness by feeling about oneself that I'm abiding by the codes of Dharma. And there's a contentment. And with that contentment, there's also compassion towards others. And there's a happiness that we all know from doing something that's an act of kindness for others. You feel something. It's a mode of goodness happiness. That's a religious, worldly happiness. And then there's otherworldly happiness. That's spiritual. And it has nothing to do with something that's temporary. It's something that's within. It's not dependent upon the mode of goodness. It's beyond the modes of nature. That's spiritual happiness. Atma Rama is one of the Sanskrit words that indicates that. A happiness that's at the Atma level. And then one can be in this or that. The duality can move around all it wants to. The configuration of things out there can move. They will anyways. And it doesn't change the happiness that's within. And so it's a different kind. Spiritual happiness is a different kind of happiness. It's an independent. It's not dependent on circumstance. Ahaituki, apratiyata yatma suprasidati. Hetu means cause, and ahaituki means without cause. Yayatma suprasidati. There's prasana and there's suprasana. And that's spiritual happiness. Nothing can create it, nothing can destroy it. So that's the connection with the source. Not just the behaviors that are good behaviors, and you feel good when you're clean. You don't feel good when you're not clean. You're a mode of goodness person. So that's a happiness. And when you're truthful, when you're doing mode of goodness things, you're doing charitable work. You're doing religious functions, and you feel something. That's a happiness. There's happiness beyond that happiness.
There's more pain in following the religious principles than the spiritual. Once you become spiritual, it's all happiness.
Yes.
But religious, probably, get up early, chanting 16 rounds, or no. That could be a little pain, right?
Yeah, there's tapa. But that tapa can take you. If the purpose is held in mind, you may pass through that tapa phase, and then it's no longer tapa. It's spontaneous. You look forward to rising early. You look forward to engaging with Krishna in the form of his holy name. You look forward to making the place clean and being in a clean atmosphere and experiencing spiritual happiness in that, and if the place is not clean, you make it clean because it's just spontaneous. It's not tapa.
That
It's our nature. It's covered. Well, because we're covered. How covered are we? Really covered. And so it may take some time to make a place that's not clean, like our heart. Prabhupada gives this example. It's a nice example. Supposing you enter a house that has been neglected for decades, and there's dust everywhere. It's a fantastic place, but in the process of cleaning, the dust is flying all over the place. It's like, but you keep cleaning, and eventually it's a very inviting place because it's clean. So we've been neglectful too long, and especially this higher purpose neglectful. It's the age in which we live. It's not just you're a bad person or I'm a bad person. It's just the age is like that. It's very covered time. And so there's lots of opposition. So we go forward with faith that this is going to get me to the place of spiritual connection. And I to some extent, I'm getting that sense, some realization that connection is there, intuitively at least. It may not be bhava, but I have that conviction. There is a higher reality, a higher consciousness, and I want it, and the means that I'm accepting is going to take me there. I'm ready to undergo what it takes to get there. And then the spontaneous or the bhava or the raga stage will come. I have that faith.
Little by little, just keep the faith.
Yeah. So I'll do the tapa for now. With faith, not just do the tapa, but with faith. It's going to take me to this place of higher consciousness, to place of eternal happiness. Happiness that's within. It's not. I got a really nice letter from a teenager today that said, in short, I kind of checked out because mom and dad would pressure me, and so now I'm off at school, and now I'm chanting, and I really like it. I'm not chanting because don't tell mom and dad how many I'm chanting, because then they'll say it's not enough. But I'm chanting because I want to, and that's happiness. And so, in the beginning, someone may chant because that's prescribed. Take your medicine. You've got an illness, here's your medicine, take your medicine. Not just because I feel like taking my medicine. I'll take it. But at some stage it becomes, the consciousness becomes cleansed, and it becomes the natural juice or rasa comes, taste comes. Until then, we're taking medicine. We're prescribed by the physician. We follow the diet, take the medicine, and do our, some exercise to keep healthy. And okay, one more.
This is from Lavakesh Kumar Singh Prabhu. I am told that in Tulasi Ramayana, Lord Rama is shown as God, whereas in Valmiki Ramayana, he is just Maharaj or king. I'm told that Rama's contemporary Valmiki called him the ideal man, but not God. Tulasi called him God. Is this true? If so, why?
I've never heard that before, and I don't get that from my reading of Ramayana. Sorry. No. I don't think it's true. I don't think it's true. I don't think that Valmiki does not recognize Ram as the personality of Godhead. He's, and that Tulsi Ramayana and Tulsi does. I don't think that that's true. Now, I suppose if it wasn't at the end of the evening class, I could give some examples. I mean, one example that comes to mind, just in in Valmiki Ramayana, is Ram's piercing the 7 salt trees with arrows, and the arrow goes down to the nether realm and comes back into his quiver. Like, wow. Now that's not, mystics may be able to do some things. He's not just a mystic. He's the personality of Godhead. He's the personality of Godhead. And there, without knowing by reference, well, yeah, Vishwamitra Muni, he speaks to Dasarath in a couple of places, saying specifically, he's the personality of Godhead. It's in Valmiki Ramayana. So, Dasarath doesn't see him that way. He sees him as his son. But there are 2 places, I can't recite them from Sanskrit, from Valmiki Ramayana, but where he specifically says, the Acharyas comment like that. So he's emphasizing the, like Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, the worldliness of a little boy that's playing with the cowherd boys, or etc., all the other things that he does, the seemingly human nature of Krishna's pastimes. But I don't think that Valmiki sees him as a human and Tulsi sees him as God. I don't think that's right. Hare Krishna.